Hey everyone, welcome back to the Inside the Den podcast here on WSBC Radio, where each week we take a closer look into the Saint Vincent Athletics. I'm here once again with my co-host Colt Easterling. Colt, how are you this evening?
Doing well. Kind of a short week this week, but still some sports to cover nonetheless.
Yeah, we're winding down. We're getting close to break here, so I think things are sort of in a transition period and some sports coming to an end that we'll talk a little bit about. But you want to start us off this week?
Yeah, I'll start off with swimming, who had a 3-day event this past weekend, a 3-day invitational at Malone University. I'll start with men's swimming. So after day one, the men sat in fourth place out of 14 teams with a total of 168 points. Jacob Duritza was able to win the 50 freestyle for the men with an impressive time of 20:38. After day two, they did have kind of a rough day two, dropping down to 8th place and now sitting at 359 points. And the men finally finished on day three in 8th place out of the 14 teams that were there with a total of 503 points. This loss put them at 1-4 overall. And on day three, Jacob Duritza won the 100 freestyle with a time of 45:48. Next up for the men is a home meet against Washington and Jefferson on December 7th. As for the women, they also competed at the 3-day Malone University Invitational. And after day one, the women sat in 6th place out of 15 teams with a total of 183 points. Abby Lucuski won the 50 freestyle for the girls on the first day, as Duritza did for the men. After day two, the girls remained in 6th place and finished the day with 447 points. The girls finished strong after a solid final day to end the week 5th out of the 15 teams that were there. Top third isn't too bad if you ask me.
No, not at all.
They finished the 3-day meet with 673 points, and this finish put them at 3-2 overall. Abby Lucuski broke the standing St. Vincent College women's 100 freestyle record with a time of 52:61 during the morning preliminaries of this final day. And similar to the men, next up for the girls is a home meet against Washington and Jefferson on December 7th. So if you are around, please come out. I know it's a busy week, but if you have a moment, stop on by.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to take us to wrestling now, who had a rough week last week. They had 2 matches on Sunday. Their first one, they lost to Fairmont 18-25. The Bearcats did win the 133, 157, and 165 weight classes, but Fairmont won the match, although it was a little bit of a back and forth until Fairmont was able to string 3 in a row to win the match. St. Vincent once again started strong on the day, but they just couldn't seem to hold on. They also took a bit of a beating last week against Seton Hill, losing 3-43. Seton Hill won the first 4 matches, and then St. Vincent won their first one of the day. Ryan Weinzen was the only win on the day for the Bearcats, and the final score was 3-43 for St. Wow, I can't speak today, guys. Sorry. Seton Hill won the match, 43-3. Colt, the Bearcats took a bit of a beating last week, again against 2 Division II schools, though.
Yeah, they lost their opening match against Shippensburg. That was a much closer match, but they haven't started their PAC campaign quite yet, so those are the games you really got to look out for, I think.
Yeah, I think, and I'm sure the coach of the team would attest to this. I think especially since these games, and we've talked about this before for the PAC, these matches matter in the sense of record, but in terms of making the playoffs, they don't.
Sure.
So I think these guys are just getting ready against some really good competition, and I'm sure they'll make a fantastic run again for the PAC championship.
Yeah, I know. It's important to play up to your competition, too. I think playing in these higher division schools is certainly going to help out the guys later in the season.
Absolutely, yeah. They'll be able to, the old saying in sports is you can learn a lot more from the losses than the wins, So these guys now know they took a bit of a beating last weekend, but they know what they got to work on now.
Absolutely. I'll move on now to men's basketball, who had 2 away games this past week. The men kicked off their PAC games with a 73-92 loss against the Chatham Cougars, bringing their record to 2-2 overall and 0-1 in the PAC. Ossione Jones had a solid scoring game with 23 points and 6 rebounds. Devo Strowski had a nice game as well on both ends with 14 points, 2 assists, and 2 steals. The stat sheet doesn't really look that bad all around, to be honest. We did have less turnovers and better shooting from the free throw line, but we didn't shoot the three ball or rebound too well. The men went on the road once again to face Teal on Saturday and lost a close one, 70-73, bringing their record to 2-3 overall and 0-2 in the PAC. St. Vincent once again did not shoot behind the arch very well, with only 4 going down on 18 attempts. I think shot selection is something that the guys not really need to work on, but I mean it's definitely something that they need to be wary of. Just because you're open doesn't mean that's the shot that you need to take. I think that's something that some of the players have talked to me about. I know that was something that Coach Harris kind of stressed in the preseason as well. Make sure you're moving the ball a lot. Just because you think you have a shot doesn't mean that's always the case. But yeah, I think that's something that they know they need to work on, and that will be something that they'll continue to work on moving forward.
I think especially for a team, I don't want to interject, Colt, but I think especially for a team where a lot of these guys are really good scorers, none of them should feel the need to carry the scoring on the day. Like most of the times when these guys win, there's three or four players in double-digit points on the day. So they all have the capability of doing it. So I think, working on that team-like aspect of moving the ball around would help them out a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, there's plenty of new guys coming in here. There's transfers that are seniors that have been all around the country. Guys from overseas that are still trying to get used to not only basketball at Saint Vincent, but the culture in America itself.
For sure.
So, I mean, all these different dynamics clashing at once. It's going to be hard at the beginning, but I think once the teamwork kind of kicks in later in the season, I think this will still be a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with you, Cole. It's still early. Got to get their feet under them a little bit.
Yeah. Ostion Jones had another great game, this time with 25 points, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Mike Isolino followed him up with 17 points, and he actually made 3 out of the 4 Bearcat three-pointers, but he also had 5 turnovers. Javante Jones finished the game with 13 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 steals. Massive defensive effort from him, but a really close one, as I said. Only a 3-point loss for the men. The men do have a busy week ahead. One of the only teams with a busy week. They'll be playing the Franciscan Barons on Tuesday, Hood Blazers on Saturday, and the Westminster Titans on Tuesday. We're not going to be live for any of those games, but certainly look at the post-game stuff on Instagram or wherever it may be.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm sure the guys are excited to hopefully go on a bit of a run over this next week, and when we come back after break, we'll hopefully be talking about a 3-0 week for the guys.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't want to call Franciscan and Westminster like must-win games, but it kind of seems that way early in the season. Hood isn't in our in the pack, but Franciscan and Westminster are both pretty solid teams. I think they were both top 10 in the pack preseason poll, but yeah, those are games that Bearcats are definitely going to want to win.
Yeah, those conference ones, stack those up as early as they can in the season for sure. So I'll take us to women's basketball now, who split their week last week. They lost on Wednesday to Chatham 60-72 in their opening game for the pack season. McKenna Mayer had a double-double, scoring 19 points with 11 rebounds.
Wow.
Camden Basher also finished with a double-double, scoring 13 points and 10 rebounds. So, solid game for a couple players. They just couldn't pull out the win. And they also got their first win of the season last week against Teal, 84-42. Quite the bashing there for the Bearcats. 12 different St. Vincent players scored at least 1 point in the win. McKenna Mayer once again with another double-double, scoring 10 points and 12 rebounds. Camden Basher had 16 points while adding 5 rebounds. St. Vincent also forced 23 turnovers in the win, so just an all-around solid game, offensive and defensive, Colt.
Yeah, definitely.
The women's Bearcats team will return to action on Tuesday night. They will take on Franciscan and then their third pack matchup of the season. Tip-off is at 5:30 on Tuesday night.
Nice. So if you are here, I know at least St. Vincent students are going home for break, or at least most St. Vincent students are going home for break that Tuesday. But if you are around, come on out to Cary. We're not going to be broadcasting that game, as I said, but if you have time, please come out, support our girls and guys basketball teams.
Absolutely. They rave so much about the atmosphere we create at the Cary Center. It would be a shame for that to go away.
Certainly. You can already see the leaders that are emerging out of this girls basketball team. I mean, they lost some really good talent to graduation last season, but I mean, there are some people really stepping up, which I think is great.
Absolutely, I would agree, yeah. And like same thing with men's, it's still early in the season, so hopefully this pretty impressive win against Teal kind of pushes them in the right direction. You know, they're now 1-1 in the pack, which again is really mostly what matters for their season. So they're not in a terrible spot, and they have a bunch of those games coming up over the next few weeks. So hopefully they can take advantage of that.
I hope so too. We have a short report on cross country. Grace Newbert and Tim Patterson competed in the NCAA Division III championships on Saturday. Grace finished 74th out of 290 runners with a final 6K time of 22:10. For the girls, the winning teams were MIT in first, University of Chicago in second, and Williams University in third. As for Tim, he finished in 285th with a final 8K time of 27:03. The top men's teams were Wisconsin Lacrosse, Wartburg College, and Ponema-Pitzer College. So impressive stuff from Grace and Tim, and we'll be hearing from Grace very soon. And now we'll welcome Grace Nybert, a freshman engineering major who is a part of the women's cross-country team. Grace, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we'll start off. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. What led you to Saint Vincent and to join the cross-country team and to become an engineering major as you are?
Yeah, I'm from St. Mary's, PA, so it's a pretty rural town. And I really liked the small community at St. Vincent. It was really welcoming, and Coach Kevin reached out to me in my junior year. And my sister had gone here, so I was pretty familiar with the campus. But I really liked it. And running-wise, I shopped around a little bit, but I visited and the team was really nice, and Coach had a good training plan that fit with my style of training. So I pretty much felt like this was the right place for me. And then the engineering program got accredited, so that was definitely a big push for me to come here.
Everything blended together kind of at the right time for you then, yeah.
What kind of stuff goes into that training regimen that you were talking about?
Yeah, there's different kinds of training styles. There's more speed-based training and more strength-based training. I respond better to strength-based, so that's more mileage and more lifting, and that typically makes you more of a stronger runner versus a lighter, quick on your toes runner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So more distance over quick sprint, I assume.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you recently competed at the national level. Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
awesome as a freshman. What was that like for your first season as a college athlete to go that far and place incredibly well?
Yeah, it was really incredible. I was really just grateful for the experience, and I had a big drop in time from high school to college, so it was just really kind of like a full circle moment for me to get to nationals and just see the hard work pay off.
Almost right away, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Really
so how does a national competition like that compare to the pack ones that we have here, or even like a pack championship one, and then even some of the ones you just have one other school?
Yeah, national there's just so many people there, and there's so many fans. There's fans lining the entire course the entire time, and the energy is just crazy. And then there's also so many people in the race, whereas a pack race I'd only see 1 or 2 people up at the front of the race, but this I'm kind of in the middle, so there's you don't know who you're racing against. You can't gauge that. You're just in the pack. It's definitely a way more electric atmosphere than a typical race.
I would imagine, yeah.
And where would you put this finish amongst the races in your career? Obviously, it's very important, and obviously you finished much higher than where you placed at nationals, but the competition is some of the best in the country. So where would you say that this is ranked amongst the finishes in your career?
Yeah, I'd say this is probably this season at least. It's hard to know compared to high school, just because 6K and 5K are so different, but I'd say that was probably my second best finish. Regionals was really good for me. That was the fastest time I ran, and definitely one of the most grittiest races I've had, but it was just, I was trying to get in the top under 100, so that was, it was a pretty solid race.
Placed well within that,
yeah. Yeah.
And regionals was record-breaking, if I recall, right?
It
so
was.
How was that race for you? What was going through your head during that?
Yeah, that was, I felt really strong during that race. There, a lot of times, before that I've been having kind of a mental block with races, but that was kind of a breakout I needed. That was I felt good, my body was rested, and I felt pretty confident the whole race, even when things got hard. That was a really good race for me.
When did they tell you that you broke the record? Did you know pretty soon after, or?
Well, they had a timer crossing the line, and I did know the record coming into it because that was kind of one of my goals.
Okay, so you knew the number that you were trying to beat going in. Okay.
Yeah, and I figured I would get it coming across the mile because I came across at like a 5:41, and that would be on pace for it, and I felt good, but I didn't know I was going to break it by as much as I did.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was pretty awesome.
So you mentioned a little bit in your first answer about some of the training stuff that you do. Will you train differently now that you've had a full season under your belt and you've gotten so far, or are you going to stay the course because it worked out so well?
Yeah, I'll probably stick to what has worked. I don't know if coach is planning on bumping mileage up. I might go up in mileage because the more mileage you can get, the better you'll get over time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of towing the line between being safe with it and getting injured. But track will be a little bit more speed-based training just because it's flat and you don't really need the grittier strength you do in cross country.
Mm-hmm. One more question about nationals before we go into like your track and field stuff. But is it intimidating playing against these like bigger time schools, especially since you're going there alone, and you see these schools like from all across the country? Is that something you kind of had to adapt to or was nervous about?
Yeah, that's definitely something, especially over the course of the year, I had to get used to because, like, even at the beginning of the season, I was like, at the Saint Francis 4K, I was kind of up at the front, and at a point I was like, okay, I belong here, like, I can do this, I belong here, and that's kind of what I had to tell myself at nationals, like, I made it here, I ran the time to get here. So I was on the line. I was like, I belong here. Like, I did the work.
Yeah, this isn't a mistake. You rightfully earned your place there. I have one more question about this season, and then we can go into track and field. What would you credit most for your successful season?
Ooh,
if you can't think of one thing, a few is okay. But
I would say, I think it's the team. I think without the team, I don't think I would have gotten as far as I did. They definitely created, like, the culture of the women's team for sure is just very unique and something I'm very grateful for. It's definitely motivating to know that the rest of my teammates are also battling during their races.
That's an amazing. And that's something I will credit the cross-country team for is, like, the camaraderie. Like, I can just tell, even as, like, a bystander, that it is very strong and that you guys kind of lean on each other, which I think is phenomenal.
You guys like eat a lot of like eating meals together and that kind of stuff, and I feel like I see a lot of you guys together.
Yeah, you don't necessarily see that with other teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
no, for sure.
I think it's awesome. So do you compete in track and field, and what kind of stuff do you compete in for that?
Yeah, so college will be a little different game for me because high school I was a 3,200 runner, which is 2 miles. So that was as high as you could go. I'll probably be long distance in track. I'll do the 5K and the 3K in indoor. They don't have the 3K in outdoor. So I'll probably mostly specialize in the 5. I might dabble a little lower, and I think he was going to put me in the 10K once or twice.
Okay.
But I would prefer to be at the 5K. Yeah.
Seems to be working so far.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't change anything at all. What would you say that you're most excited going into track and your next cross-country season?
Yeah, I'm excited to build off of what I've already started this season. It's always exciting to break your own times, and like that's very motivating for me is to go out and try to beat the last time. I'm excited to see what I can do in a track 5K because I've never really ran one. And definitely cross-country, I'm excited to try to build off of what I did this year and get to nationals again and place higher.
Awesome.
So I don't know a ton about track meets. So if you would say you would run a 5K mostly.
Yeah.
How many people would run that? Because I know there's so many different events.
Yeah, I'd say it depends on where you're at. Usually the race is probably capped around 20, 25.
Okay.
It depends though. If it's a bigger meet, it'll be smaller and more heats.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's kind of a smaller meet, they'll try to put everybody in one heat.
So if you were to do really well all season, and there's national level for track,
Yeah.
do you go then just for that event?
Yeah. Nationals for track is really hard to get to, though, because there's not as many spots as cross country.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have to run a qualifying time to get to the regional meet, and the regional meet is kind of like your last chance to like put down a good time to get in the national ranking.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm learning about
Yeah,
all this
we
stuff.
are.
See, we're trying to learn everything.
Yeah, we have a podcast about sports, and we're clueless.
Yeah, we're novices about quite a few different sports, so we're getting there.
You good?
Yeah, I don't have anything else. Grace,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Yeah. Do you have any last comments, or are you good?
No, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was amazing. We appreciate your time.
All right, we'd like to thank Grace very much for her time tonight. It was awesome to have another really successful freshman athlete on the show, Cole.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had 3 already. I can imagine that number going up as we enter into the midst of the winter seasons and then into spring. So I'm super excited. She was very insightful, very well spoken. So I'm happy she was able to come on here and talk a little bit about her successes.
Yeah, definitely. She articulated the way she goes about things very maturely, I think.
Mhm.
Like, certainly that I would not have been at that level
No.
as a freshman.
No,
And
definitely
I think that people who are like that often can point to things like that make them so successful.
Mm-hmm.
And Tim touched on this when we interviewed him. We could have asked Grace about this too, but running is such a mental sport, you know, like obviously there's so many different intricate things that go into it that I'm sure that neither of us know about,
Mm-hmm.
but running, and cross country people will let me hear it for this, but the act of running is somewhat basic, so it's very much about the mental aspect of pushing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
remembering the training, seeing all the other people around you, like, and knowing, like she said, you have numbers that you want to beat, you have places that you want to get to, so they're balancing, like, you know, the team aspect of cross country
Mm-hmm.
with like all that camaraderie, but also your individual times matter too. So it's the mental aspect of it, I think, is much greater than most sports.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's very similar to golf, I'd say, in that way, where
Shameless plug for
Yeah,
you, the
shameless
golfer
plug for the
right
golf
here.
team,
Sure.
but no, yeah, because there is an individual aspect, and obviously you want to do as best as you can, but you also have to be there for your team. Like, you can never give up, because if you never really know what your other teammates are going to score, so you have to be there regardless. Always put one foot in front of the other, pun intended, but like, no, seriously, I mean, she did really phenomenal her freshman year, breaking records left and right.
Yeah, she said she wanted to do better. I don't
Yeah.
really know how much better you can get than this.
Going to a D3 nationals, I mean, it's just
And
pretty
placing
phenomenal.
in the top 25% of people is really
or
good.
At least 1/3, but yeah, really, really well done.
So that'll do it for this episode. This should be airing hopefully by Tuesday. We're recording on Monday night, so everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll be back next week. There won't be a ton to talk about, as we
Yeah.
discussed. Men's basketball has a couple games, and women's basketball, I think I didn't mention that wrestling is off until next Friday, December 6th. So we won't have a ton to talk about next week, but we should be back the Monday after Thanksgiving. So everybody enjoy their break and their holiday, and we'll talk to you next week.